Hello everyone, I'm Nini FC, this is Blue Lions TV, and welcome to the match review of our disappointing 2-0 loss against Man United. We're out of the FA Cup, it's over. But before I get into things, one thing I want to make clear for this match review is keep an open mind, be objective. I feel like I'm going to stress on some key points throughout this match review, so I hope that people are just going to be aware of them and keep an open mind. Anyway, I'm going to talk about the team selection and the tactics very quickly before I focus on the bigger issues for this match review. Of course, of the lineup, it was the tried and tested lineup that SARRI feels confident and comfortable using. Now, we as fans know that there's limitations with that current squad of player. SARRI isn't rotating enough. He's not using other options that could be helping out the system more, in my opinion. For some reason, I think he's told himself that these are the guys. Now, I understand why, from a coaching perspective, you might feel like when it comes to actually pressing as a team, these guys are better than other players, but still, we've seen these guys fail consistently and consistently. It has to get to a point where you have to do something new. You have to be a bit fresh. And this is why it was disappointing to not see Hudson-Odoi start or even get any minutes in this game. It's a shame that Ruben wasn't fit enough, I'm guessing, to play a part in this game. I feel like we've really missed out on him in that number 8 role. Cover and Ross just aren't really going to do anything for us in that position. But of course, the most disappointing player that was selected was Marcos Alonso. I don't understand why SARRI just won't give that momentum for Emerson. He needs it. How do we know that he can't adapt or learn? He's not getting the opportunities or the game time. I mean, the guy's barely played in a year. It's getting really frustrating now, and I think that it's such a simple solution. Emerson helps us. We've seen, the glimpses of what he can offer and what he can provide, and it's getting frustrating that SARRI is still relying on the same players that aren't helping the cause. Now, moving on to the tactics very quickly with United, they've used a system and tactic that we've seen quite a few times already. Of course, that diamond in midfield, 2 up front, which did make sense. Of course, Rashford isn't as good out wide. And of course, playing in that Christmas stream means that you can really affect our passing play out from the back. Of course, Mata was man-marking Jorginho, and Rashford and Lukaku were on Rudiger and David Luiz, and of course, it was making it quite hard for us at times to really switch the ball. That's the most important thing when you're a possession team, is to constantly switch possession of the ball, to find openings, find space in the middle, etc, etc. Create 1v1s for your players. We weren't able to do that consistently, and when a team uses this formation alongside, very compact mid-block to low block tactics as well, this team really struggles to have any kind of creative spark. They don't understand how to create opportunities or chances. And for me, this is where it comes down to the guys not being good enough for this style of football. Now, hear me out a second. I'm going to elaborate on this point further on in today's match review. And honestly, I think there's more important things to talk about now instead of tactics. But I have to say one thing about SARRI. It's starting to slowly look like SARRI might be falling into that typical tried and tested formula of maybe relying too much on the ego and maybe being a bit too stubborn. It's not the first time we've seen Chelsea managers descend down this route. We've seen it with Conte. We saw it with Jose Mourinho. And I have heard some things in regards to SARRI and what's happening. I'm hoping that I do get permission to talk about it later on during this week. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And I hope that this clarifies to a lot of you that, I'm not someone that's very sentimental. I mean, all my points are SARRI are points I believe in, and I still do. But overall, I try to be very objective. So if I get produced the right information or hear the right things, of course I'm flexible. I don't have an ego, so it's really easy for me to accept new ideas and try to understand it. But of course, don't think that I've just turned on SARRI all of a sudden. You guys know I'm not reactionary. I think of the bigger picture and bigger plan every single time. But that doesn't mean that I can't comment and make observations on what I'm seeing SARRI doing. I still believe in the process. I think that this style of football is best for our future, and it's really going to help us in the long term. But what about for now? We're still Chelsea. We're still a club that needs to appease our shareholders. We still need to compete. Now, for me, I'd be happy to take 1 or 2 seasons of struggle, but I do understand that we're a club that needs to be competing for something every single year. And this leads on nicely to my 2 major criticisms of SARRI. The first one is team selection, and the second criticism is stubbornness in game. Now for the first point, that's fairly simple, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like SARRI could be using some players in this squad that's going to provide that spark to help out some of the other players on the pitch. I constantly keep stressing that football's a team game where it's about, players complementing each other's strengths and weaknesses to get the best out of the team. And I feel with guys like Emerson, with Ruben and Hudson-Odoi, the introduction of these three players could really help us out offensively. Number one, with Emerson, I constantly keep seeing this guy making runs in behind. He's the only fullback that does that. You never see Aspie and you never see Alonso doing that whatsoever. That can help us a lot. And this is why we need Emerson playing in the team more, because he needs that momentum of a run of games. It's very hard where you get the odd game once a month and then you get maybe 5 minutes from there on. It's really hard to build anything from that. Even with Ruben, there's a lot of times I feel this season he should have played a lot more. For me, he is the best number 8 we have. He provides everything we need. And of course, moving on to Hudson-Odoi, he provides that spark that Pedro and Willian don't have. I keep stressing this all the time, but we see the same patterns of play, the same combinations, and the same moves from these players. Now, if we're noticing the same things, what do you think opposition teams are noticing? It's fairly simple, but with Callum, he's able to cut inside, he's able to keep the ball and play people in, he's able to, beat someone for pace down the flanks as well, and whipping across. He has all of these attributes to his game. They're not being utilised enough. Since the window's ended, he's barely played. I think it's the biggest disgrace. It's not good enough, and I think SARRI needs to take major criticism for that. And for my second criticism, I was mentioning the fact that he's too stubborn in game. Now, if some of you guys remember me saying this, back when, Giroud and Hazard was a thing and they were playing well, Giroud was having a positive impact in the game. That was during the start of the season. I was talking about the fact that, in a 5 talking points video, whether SARRI should embrace having a plan B in game. Now, the reason why I made the point all the way back then was because I noticed that whenever Giroud comes on, the team plays way more direct. You see Hazard, being able to link up with someone effectively up front. And of course, Giroud's good in the air. And obviously, it makes sense why this team does much better playing a lot more directly, because this team really struggles to create any opportunities from open play. When we're up against these deep defensive teams, we don't have the players to really break through that. We don't have the personnel or some of the key attributes you need to really play this style of football successfully. That's the reality. And I think that's why we're noticing the limitations of these players. And this is why I keep constantly making the point that a lot of these guys aren't good enough. And how does this link back to SARRI? Well, what I'm saying is, look at the reality of this game today. There's about half an hour left of the game. And you remember, well, this is the FA Cup. It's a knockout game. So in that sense, you have to do anything you can to win because it's a knockout game. It doesn't reflect yourself over the season. And in the last half an hour, I would have been happy to see Giroud partnering Higuain up front, having some like a Callum out wide on the right, having Hazard on the left. I know it's different, it's not really part of the system, and it's not going to help the team out in the long term, but in the context of certain games, when you see the team are struggling, and let's be serious with one thing, the players play with desire and heart today. It wasn't a question of them not performing or not working hard. We have to accept that there's a limit with this team. But sometimes you have to help out the limited players, and if that means that you have to maybe use a plan B in that sense in the context of games, you have to. And I've said this before, it's not the first time I've said this, I've got videos from back then, you guys can check yourself. I've said this point already before, I'm not saying anything new. When it comes to the context of games, sometimes, SARRI, you have to maybe embrace the fact that the team aren't going to do anything playing the style of football. You understand yourself, it's the process. You don't have all the right personnel you need right now. We know the type of players you're looking for to complement this system and style, but you have to accept that it's a process yourself to get there. It's not going to happen overnight. I think you have to embrace and understand that. But still, just to wrap up everything, there's one thing fans must accept though. You must accept it. One reality is the fact that a lot of times we blame individual players for defensive mistakes. I've always tried to stress consistently that it's a team collective. We're a pressing team. We press on the front foot. We get in the opponent's half. Every player has to be in the right position, know what to do, when to make the right run, and when to close down, and win their tackles most importantly. If these things don't happen, you notice that there's going to be a lot of gaps. There's going to be a lot of gaps and spaces to exploit. And just think about it. Whenever we tend to concede a goal, it's about 3 or 4 players' fault. Now, even today, I was criticising Alonso. I was criticising someone not picking up the runs. But when you analyse it again, seeing it from different camera angles, etc., you notice that maybe 5 or 6 players made individual mistakes that led to that moment. Players didn't stop the passing lane. Players didn't follow the run. Players weren't in their defensive line to deal with anything. Alonso didn't check his far post. It's cohesive. And it comes back to the point I make all the time. For the second point, these players aren't as good. But there's one reality now. We've seen this team try and play defensive football. We've seen this team try and play counter-attacking football. Now we're seeing this team playing possession football. That's 3 different styles. And so far, they've failed in each run. Now, yes, I know that they've won trophies under certain styles, but long-term wise, it's not paying off. It gets to that point where, what can you do with this current group of players? Even if you play the right way that suits them, if you play more direct, are they still a team where they'll be good enough to bury chances or win games? That's the reality right now, and it always comes down to me, the board. Every bad thing that happens to a club starts on people ahead. That's what happens in bureaucracies. It shows you the poor transfer record over the past few years. We don't have a squad that's suited to any style of football. That's the reality. So I feel it's really harsh when Sarri gets the blame for everything, especially when people are making criticisms out of context. I felt I've made the right criticisms on Sarri today. But we have to ask ourselves, how do we move on in the future? Hypothetically, if Sarri's gone and he leaves, if a new manager comes in, what can he do? I made the point we failed defensive, counter-attack and possession football because the squad personnel aren't correct. And that's come down to the board making stupid signings over the years that's ruined the balance. We're a team that can't do anything. You guys can blame Sarri all you want. He's working with poor ingredients. He can't make the beautiful dishes he wants to right now, but we know that if he can get those ingredients, we're going to have an amazing meal. And here's one thing for all of us to think about, even me. How do we move on in the future? What is the thing Chelsea need to do to move on from being an Arsenal-like club to one of the best in Europe? And I just think that if it doesn't involve spending hundreds of millions in the market, what's the other solution? The only solution can be a manager bringing in a philosophy and playing football. And in my opinion, that was why I've always been an advocate for Sarri, and I still am, because I keep stressing this all the time. You guys keep thinking short term. I'm thinking about where I want my club to be in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. You guys just keep thinking about now. I'm thinking about what's going to be best for our future because I don't want to have more seasons like this in the next 10 years. But if things don't change, if we can't accept to have a season or 2 of bad luck, how are we going to step up? How are we going to move on? How are we going to reach the higher levels of European football? But anyway, you guys, that's just my thoughts and opinions on the game today. You guys know I've got my own different takes. I feel and think differently in regards to what I'm seeing in the game. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please like, comment and subscribe. I'm the FC. This is Blue Lines TV. Sorry, don't let the stubbornness end you.